Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. More Birthright coverage as today we continue our series with the various Anshe, and of course we're kind of at the midpoint, not quite midpoint, but we're on to the infamous Gorgon, the big bad boss of the whole setting and the strongest of the Anshe by far. And just to give you that awesome artwork from when this was released, and that is a terrifying thing to even contemplate attacking and dealing with. And really just defeating the Gorgon is virtually impossible, at least conventionally so. But it's an excellent tale and really frames the narrative for a lot of the conflict in the setting, as anybody who's even remotely close to his borders suffers or tends to suffer greatly, and really would kind of take the combined might of pretty much most realms to even hope of fully stopping and somehow having a hope or prayer of even defeating it, right? So this is the Sauron of the setting. This is the big bad boss. There are some other Anshe that are up there in power levels too, which we'll get to eventually. But this is meant as, at least if you like only have access to like the core box and like the classic part of the Birthright setting, this is your main foe and antagonist, far outstripping even like Rove Manslayer, though he'd be a close second in the core setting, then the Spider, and so on and so forth. So, and here we actually get a nice first-hand account from the Gorgon itself. I was the firstborn lord of the first house of Andu, but since I was a bastard birth, I did not enjoy the prestige and glory my two younger legitimate brothers were given. I never let that disappointment show, and that might have been my downfall. I think our father loved me more, but found it impossible due to cultural restraints to show it properly. But then again, that was also his downfall. In spite of the restraints placed on me because of my lack of proper station, I was able to associate with my half-brothers. My father was kind enough to let me live in the same house as he, his wife, and his two legitimate sons. I taught my brothers much of my skill at swordplay and horsemanship, and my tutoring gave both Halen and Roll an excellent grasp of the fundamentals of warfare. After several years as their teacher, I started yearning to see the world, so when I turned 16 years of age, I left to explore Cerelia. I felt my brothers were the only ones who cared about my leaving. I traveled about, grappling with monsters and bandits, slowly increasing my abilities as a warrior. I felt that I was on the way to help shape the course of the world. Everywhere I went, I was seen as the charismatic leader and heroic warrior of great promise that I truly was. For once in my life, I was seen as someone other than an illegitimate heir, and my confidence grew with my popularity among the people. I eventually fell in love with a woman and her band of warriors in southern Annuir. She hoped to lead us against a tribe of Knoll raiders and take back the wealth the Jackal men had spent years stealing from passing caravans. After 2 months of constant fighting, we succeeded in capturing their den and securing their hoard. Unfortunately, my companions all died in that last battle or shortly thereafter from wounds. Despite the victory, there was no one to share it and the wealth. I was overwhelmed with grief that day, for that woman, the fair Silandra, was to bear me a son. I lost both that day. When I returned home, battle-weary and scarred, my father gave me the title Black Prince, as my armor had turned a sooty color during my adventures. Despite my many victories and the accolades from our people, one thing changed about my relationship with my sire. He never told me anything in confidence after my return, as if he no longer trusted me. I felt that my newly acquired experience and popularity should have never gained me such treatment, should have granted me rightful recognition with my far less deserving brethren. I never forgave him for that, and over many months my anger grew. After a particularly exceptional night of indulgence, soon after my father's death, I had a remarkable dream which set me on the path to power undreamt by mortal man before. Fog enshrouded our entire empire, and out of that fog came a clear vision of a handsome male face. He spoke to me, consoled me in my discontent, and made me see things the way I should have seen them years before. He told me he understood the anguish I felt, because I, being my father's eldest son, received no birthright when he passed away, and held nothing now except pitiable indulgences. He told me he held the legacy that was rightfully mine, and all I needed to do was ask for it. I did, and he made me his son and heir. I knelt to this powerful vision and filled me with power and might and rage. I was now the offspring of Azrai, and no longer would I tie or hold ties with my more worthy brothers. I quietly garnered supporters from across the Andu lands, for my new sire recommended guile and patience in building our power, not wielding the brute rage I had held in check for so long. With my best artfulness, I went to the tribes of the Andu to seek allies and was not disappointed at the backing I received. Many people, especially the warriors and magicians, were ready for change and itching for power. The complacency they upheld was wearing thin and not suited for their restless spirits. When our time came, my allies and I made our true power and desires known at Deismar. I had the chance to show my upstart brothers Roll and Halen who truly should rule. Alrighty guys, let's continue on. When the gods destroyed themselves to kill my patron and the only one of them who understood power, I gained much as Azrai's third champion, though not as much as Azrai's other favorites. My anger against my brothers kept me on Cerelia, rather than rising to godhood like Krisha and Belanik. I absorbed much of Azrai's dwindling essence, and the battle I fought with my brothers over the Empire was over for the moment. The earth-splitting force of the gods' destruction shattered both Mount Deismar and the Empire, scattering all the armies and their principals far and wide. In the years of wandering that followed, I showed the many lessers who crossed my path what made me the sole remaining champion of Azrai and the rightful ruler of Cerelia. And with each victory, my might grew, and my power changed me, shaped me into a fearsome creature that men called Gorgon. It mattered little, I am still Racine, no matter what tag they give me, and I shall rule. When the time came for Michael Roll and me to meet on the field of battle, I was victorious. From his faintly beating heart, I tore the power and the birthright that was due me all those years before. Anweir's power was crushed, and fear and confusion blew society apart like the house of cards that it was, for the house of Roll knew nothing of power nor how to wield it. Look at it today, the landscape dotted with idiots, pompously perched on little thrones, hardly conceiving of what they do, let alone how they do it. Should they ever learn to act in concert and wield their might, I could be interested in hearing what they say. As it is, they are little more than crowned lambs awaiting slaughter. So then it continues here. While it's not my place to correct or argue truth or nature with one so versed with power as the Black Prince Racine, much of his diatribe is peppered with subjective half-truths, to say the least. If one reads the historical records of Cerelia, all cultures, not just Anawirian, the truth always falls somewhere in between, and the Gorgon story does not in many cases. According to the personal diary of a known tutor of Roll at the Anawirian court, Racine returned from his adventures across Cerelia a changed man. His mind was corrupt and power-mad, and his anger rotted him away from inside, leaving nothing but contempt and feeling for vengeance. The king sensed this and confided his dread in the tutor. With this dread fully in mind, Racine's father granted him the title of the Black Prince, a title which still follows him today. Normally, this version of events might be ascribed as hearsay, but Roll's memoirs also recount this scene, and both accounts are identical in all ways. Racine's fall and Azrai's ultimate plans for the Anawirian traitor are not recorded for history, leading many into conjecture about exactly what drove both the Shadow Lord and his champion to their fates. It can be assumed that Azrai wanted to have an ultimate champion in Cerelia, and he wanted that champion to lead the destruction of Anawir, the gem of Cerelia. He accomplished that havoc when Racine chose his power and thus split the ruling family. Now, with Azrai's destruction at Mount Deismar, any of his plans for Cerelia through Racine ended, and the Gorgon's own plans and intrigues began. Racine's motivations began as rather straightforward and simple things, though they've grown Hydra-like over the passing centuries. A thirst for power and influence drove him first from his father's favor, and finally from the favor of any save the most evil of gods. Racine, blind with years of anger and jealousy, once wanted nothing more than to destroy his privileged half-brothers. Now, his original goal either accomplished or out of reach, he seeks to undo any of their works and garner more power for himself. A number of hidden sources within Cal Sathirak and outlying provinces within the Gorgon's crown say that the Gorgon's final battle with the House of Roll was not as great a victory as often painted. When they fought at battle weight, Racine underestimated his young foe's determination to save his people from the Gorgon. He gained huge amounts of power, but that drove the last remnants of humanity out of him. While he still believes himself to be Racine, all that truly remains is the Gorgon. greatest rumor of this battle involves Michael Roll's final sacrifice for his people. With his dying breath, he apparently was able to somehow tap into his reservoirs of strength and ground much of his escaping power as he died. If this is true, the Gorgon ultimately lost more power than he gained with the murder and blood theft. Some who believe in this tale also believe the Gorgon's own power is tied to his castle, and he may be diminished if he should leave the walls of Battleweight. There is little evidence, beyond hope, to support this idea, but anyone who visits the castle can feel the walls hum with confined power. So let's take a quick look stat-wise at him, and we get a card insert with the core box that can give you a lot of the basics of the Gorgon, but this obviously is going to go into a little bit more detail. Intelligence is a 19. Activity cycles, any carnivore, considered lawful evil. Movement of 9, 8 foot tall, horribly huge. Armor class, again, older style here with second ed, but just in a base form would be a 0. So I would convert it to like 20 in 5th ed, with armor, with his magical armor and all that, -10, which would be something like a 30 today. Hit points 170. He saves as a level 25 fighter. Thaco doesn't exist anymore, but basically number of attacks would be either fists, just 2 fists, or 5 over 2 turns. You can maybe adjust that slightly. But anyway, basically with a specialized weapon, or basically 2 attacks per turn, which really should be higher considering, being that high of a fighter. I think in the insert to it, as mentioned, I think he's like a level 25 fighter, level 18 wizard or something, just absurd, right? Damage with fists is just D8 plus modifiers, obviously. We'll get to that. He's got a kick, a gaze attack, other weapon specializations. You need a +2 or better weapon to even hit him. He's immune to gazes, 40% magic resistance, absolutely fearless. Highest bloodline of anything in the setting, 100 plus of Azrai. Several abilities too: blood form, divine aura, heightened ability, long life, poison sense, regen, as if he needed that, standard and major. And for somehow slaying the beast, should it ever be possible, a massive 32,000 XP. Or if you're doing like the milestone leveling, so should probably be like a 2 or 3 level ups, depending on what level you're at. There's the stats there: 20 strength, 18 on intelligence, dexterity is 15, 18 wisdom, con of 21, charisma of 18. So yeah, quite a bit of stuff there. So as he's been the Gorgon for centuries now, he's the most feared Anshe in all of Cerealia, bar none. He's a massive, giant, stony-skinned humanoid with a bull-like head, complete with horns and powerful goat-like legs and diamond-hard hooves, which, kick attack would be even frightening for him. So yeah, it's basically power and terror personified. Now, when he was still human, Racine was one of Anuir's premier swordsmen. He was skilled in many weapons, even specialized in a few, making him truly a dangerous foe. Now, with more than 1,000 years of weapons practice in warfare, he wields nearly every weapon as if he were a specialist. And then basically the physical skills, right? He has 2 potent gaze attacks that he can use once every other round. After a full round of concentrating on one foe, no more than parrying attacks, he can turn his target to stone or cause it to fall dead on the spot. So yeah, hard enough to deal with just all the raw stats and abilities, as if that wasn't insane enough. But then good luck fighting him and dealing with that basically. Now, the stone gaze attack requires a saving throw versus petrification with a -2 penalty. Second is save versus death magic. Finally, the Gorgon can but rarely uses his goat-like legs to deliver a powerful kick, so 2d6 plus mods. He can kick even while making an ordinary attack, so crazy stuff. Now, if he does make the kick, he does leave himself slightly more vulnerable, getting a +2 penalty to his AC, or in more modern editions, basically a -2 on his AC. But oh no, if he's got his armor on, he goes from 30 down to 28. What a downgrade. So his stony skin here gives him an AC of 0. Again, we've got to port things into 5th. His blood form also gets him 40% magic resistance, immunity to weapons of less than 2%, or +2 enchantment. We've seen that. But it gets worse for anybody trying to go head-to-head here. His magical armor and weaponry include Kingstopper, a giant suit of plate mail +5, so yeah. A gentle word, which is a shield +5. That's where all that extra armor comes in. And Life Ender, a great sword made of Timavril, which is that special mineral in the setting that basically will help, like, essentially steal or rob someone of their bloodline and abilities. So, thankfully, the sword doesn't come with any other, like, crazy bonuses or anything. It's bad enough that it is what it is, but then also, obviously, with the person or the entity here wielding it. So, onto the Gorgon's realm now. We've covered that in its entirety before when we were looking at the classical settings, but here it's just reprinted in the Blood Enemies section, right? So we're not going to cover it in full detail here again. Go check out our video on the Gorgon's realm. But his main realm, he has several like sort of vassal territories, but the main realm is huge. None of them overly populated, right? With a 3 being the best, but 100% under his control. So. And all the sources are his as well. So you have that to deal with, right? Basically, and essentially, there's no limit to his resources, right? For as far as Regency, 150 plus gold bars, insane military force built up. So, and again, we've covered all that. So, and he has essentially unlimited earth or humanoids at his disposal. Gnolls, goblins, orogs, giants, ogres, etc. So basically, the DM should feel free to throw just about the whole kitchen sink at the players should they seriously consider entering his territory or somehow starting a campaign against the Gorgon. So really, there's no end to quantity or variety of things that the DM should be throwing at the players here. So a couple other things, though, that this does elaborate on. So lieutenants, he's got Kiras Earth Corps. Titular Hand of the Gorgon is the sub-commander of the military forces. He also controls the production of weapons and armor for the troops. He manages the money in the Gorgon's crown. And, Tolan manages the money in the Gorgon's crown and the income from the vassal states. Tolan also supervises the network of spies and assassins used by the Gorgon across Cerealia. Kiras and Tolan are detailed further in the Lesser Anche, which we'll get to later. So yeah, there's a whole section in this book too, which is again another reason to pick up the Blood Enemies accessory. You get a whole slew of minor Anches and other bad guys that are present in the system or in the setting. So then other lieutenants, basically the puppet rulers of the other realms, Kiergaard, Morkaland, and Markazor, we've covered those as well. So reference those videos as well. Now, a little bit more, though, on the other NPCs here. The Hand of Azrai is one of the most powerful and influential people within the Gorgon's crown, and she is the only figure in power that is not blooded. She's a mysterious woman from the lands to the far east, and her reasons for arriving and staying in the crown are unknown. Some speculate that she is in love with the Gorgon, though her reticence and the Gorgon's impassive glare tell of nothing that might pass between them. While she is unblooded, she is a high-level priestess of Azrai, Krisha, and Belanek, and maintains their temples and states far better than most other buildings outside of Cal Satharak, the capital. The other most important NPCs are the chiefs and respective leaders of the armies, which again we'll cover in other details. The Gnolls are led by Kurak, Lone Hunter, and old but powerful Gnoll chieftain. The Goblin King Charkek Talnos unifies the goblins under his banner, and the humans and dwarves are immediately led by the Anche Kiras. Now, the physical domain, again, we've covered that, but it's a huge expanse in the northeast of Anuir and borders on the Brecht realms and the Rurik realms as well. And basically, a few neighboring domains are also under his control, again, the other puppet realms. But it's basically a monstrous or mountainous wasteland filled with small volcanoes. So think Mordor, basically. That's kind of the inspiration for this. And at the center of the land is a forest of pines that stay firmly rooted in the harsh soil in spite of mild earthquakes that occasionally rock the region. And then in the center of that is Cal Satharak, the Gorgon's castle. And it's better known as Battleweight throughout Anuiran lands. The Gorgon commands and controls his hordes from this mammoth structure. Beneath it, there's dungeons that go deep into the earth. Thus far, no one has really dealt with that except for the Gorgon, perhaps, and even then, maybe he doesn't know all of it. The Gorgon's throne room is well adorned with weapons, and they're all in easy reach of the throne. Among these is actually the sword of the Anuiran Empire, a Timavril weapon once believed Destroyed in battle with the Gorgon, a morning star known as Thunderclap, a spear called the Spear of Destiny, and his own great sword, Life Ender. And really, again, the DM should also just feel free to add whatever else, more or less, they want to that. All kinds of weapons and gear from failed attempts at fighting the Gorgon, or when he's actually gone out and slain enemies as well. So we get several cities there. Trade goods, what little there is, right? Wood is used for fuel and building supplies, and that's basically the greatest import. The Gorgon does export ores, metals, and weapons to his vassals, which are his only trading partners, right? No one in their right mind would have a trade relationship willingly. Now, he doesn't invite allies. He does accept vassals, and there are several domains, right? Again, he controls Kiergaard, Markazor, and Morkalad, and they're basically slave realms. Now, rumors talk, and again, hopefully there are just rumors, of a pact amongst Racine, the Raven, and the Magian to destroy all the other regions in Cerealia, but few believe that, and thankfully, I think with their egos and somewhat chaotic natures, that alliance wouldn't last long. Gorgon is definitely a step above them, but there's no... The Raven nor the Magian are any joke whatsoever. Those are also top-tier enemies, but thankfully a little bit further away. Basically, everyone else is an enemy of him. Pretty easy to understand. The Gorgon has ordered his mercenaries to kidnap miners and smelters to smelt the iron of the crown into weapons. All the domains bordering the Gorgon's crown have suffered a number of blacksmith disappearances, and the Gorgon is most likely responsible for most, if not all of them, which would be a nice basic adventure hook, is to investigate that and maybe get on the trail, and that leads the players into the Gorgon's realm, which should be, nothing for low-level adventurers, but so maybe like a mid-level to high-level campaign, or at least the early steps should get the players through low levels before they really enter the realm, and encounter any of these serious threats inside the Gorgon's crown. But there you have it. Yeah, the beast itself is quite frightening. We're going to take a quick pause here, and we're going to show the card insert that you get from the core set as well. But the Gorgon's crown is, again, the Gorgon is really the big bad end boss of the whole setting, or at least for Anawir. If there were some way to defeat the Black Prince, it would certainly be a major accomplishment. I think anyone capable of doing it would certainly get to crown themselves a new emperor of Anawir and maybe start a new dynasty, assuming you can get all the other realms on board with that. Certainly, you would have the clout of having done that, and it might even shape other human alliances, even perhaps elves and dwarves too. And it really would be a major reshuffling. Although in the wake of defeating the Gorgon and everything related to him, again, the aforementioned Raven and Magian certainly would probably jump up into more prominence, and other nasty Anshe like the White Witch and stuff. So there'd be a power vacuum for sure, so that there could be a danger in the aftermath of that as well. But we'll be right back. Alrighty guys, just a quick look here. So this is the insert that you get with the core box, which actually explains a fair bit, just not as much detail as we just covered though, but gives you more than enough if you wanted to like sprinkle this in a little bit. But here specifically though, it mentions, yeah, he's a level 25 fighter and 16 wizard, so porting that over into 5th is going to make him really, truly frightening. So, and really neither this nor the other, the Blood Enemies book really delves into the wizard aspect for him whatsoever. So not that he needs more. It seems certainly focused on being a fighter, but you could sprinkle in some wizardly abilities, certainly. But then, yeah, just more a condensed summary of the history that we just worked through without as much description of the realm and lieutenants and stuff like that. But yeah, that wraps up the Gorgon, guys. Let us know if your campaign has ever taken you into his territory. Has your campaign ever gotten to the point where they've faced him? And certainly have your campaigns ever actually defeated him? What did that look like? What were the circumstances? People involved. Should be nigh impossible, but really would be, again, something on the scale of like something Lord of the Rings-esque as far as just the size and scale of taking this giant evil down. and certainly should have a amazing story attached to it. So let us know in the comments, guys, what you think of the Gorgon, and again, how that's gone in your campaigns. Be sure to like and subscribe, and if you want to support the channel, consider giving us a little bit of support on Patreon. Everything helps there, and we'll have some exclusive Birthright content and other D&D content as well. Thanks for watching.